I am actually really excited to talk about this topic. I have spent the last almost 15 years of this is WFES number 15 for me. I have never missed one, so this is exciting because it's our first WFES Masdar City as an independent company. So we've always been part of Masdar, a fantastic initiative, and love those guys over there. But it's so exciting to see what we've been able to do on our own. And this brings up the topic of what have you been doing for the past 15 years, and why do people come to Masdar City? Why does Masdar City still matter? And what changes have you seen? So I'm excited to be able to share some of that journey that we've been on since our inception 15 years ago with you. To set the stage, though, why does this matter? Why is this important in something about the World Future Energy Summit? Because the built environment contributes about 40% of the total carbon output. And that does not even include the construction that goes into that. That's what we're using now. So so Masdar City wants to demonstrate how to use less. The UAE and the world have really coalesced around 2050 as our target for net zero. If we're going to limit the global temperature increase to 1.5, and that's a very difficult target, but we've said we must get to net zero by 2050. And if we're going to get to net zero, we have to take on the built environment, both the buildings that are already in place, but also the ones that will be coming. I think these are numbers that'll be familiar to a lot of you. At the same time, we've got 40% of the carbon coming from the built environment. We're also still growing, almost to almost 10 billion people by 2050. Now, I'm gonna share a personal note here that's actually not in the slides, but it does give you the scale of what the world has gone through. My father was born in 1939. At the time of his birth, there were 2 billion people on Earth. My father passed away last year in 2023 with 8 billion people on Earth. That's in one man's lifetime, a quadrupling of the world's population. That's a change that we've never seen. And we're still going to grow to approximately 10 billion people. At that point, they say we'll top out and we'll start going back down. And 68%, we're looking at 7 billion people living in cities. And for that, we need significant build out. And at the same time, you're looking at a significant increase in economic development and in lifestyle expectations for a great part of the world right now. Those of us who live in, say, fully developed countries like the UAE, how many of you live in the UAE here? About half of you. So good. So half of you have come in from somewhere else. But no one in the UAE wants to cut their lifestyle to cut carbon emissions, right? In fact, no one anywhere in the world wants to cut their lifestyle. No one in the US, no one in Europe, no one in the UAE wants to cut their lifestyle. We have to figure out how to do this while maintaining the lifestyle we have, and then increasing the development, increasing the economic opportunity, increasing access to electricity, increasing access to clean water, increasing access to food for people around the world. This will be the biggest challenge, not only that our industry, but that our planet and our people have ever faced, and will require a level of cooperation across countries, across companies, across NGOs, across governments that we've never seen before. But that's the size and scale of the issue we're facing. We've gotten many countries, many companies to sign up for it, but now we need to work together to get there. The UAE in 2021 made their commitment to 2050. I think a lot of you were probably at COP28 in Dubai just a few months ago, where many more companies, many more countries signed up for 2050 as well too. Just a video for those. How many of you have never visited Masdar City? That is such a shame, because I can talk about it all day, but I prefer that you come out and see it and see what the buildings look like, see what sustainability looks like, see what we've been able to do out there, because it's, seeing is believing. So while the video is great, real life is better. So this is Yep. And this is really the truth. From an idea to reality, and 17 years ago, in 2006, when Abu Dhabi founded the Masdar Initiative, and we used to have visitors come out all the time back then in the early days and say, why in the world would Abu Dhabi do something like this? Why would you do Masdar City? Abu Dhabi has all the oil that it needs, right? Everyone's familiar? Abu Dhabi has a little bit of oil. Why would you do this? In 2006, you could do any project regionally without thinking about sustainability. Sustainability was not on the agenda. And honestly, it looked a little crazy at the time. Now it looks visionary. Now no one asks, why would you do it? Now everybody asks, how can you do it? How can we do it with you? And this is what we need to do together. It's a sustainable urban community, world-class business and technology hub in a place where you live, work, and play in one location. We'd like to say that we're doing the green print for the cities of the future. And this is where money comes in. Everyone like to talk about money? Good, I like to talk about money. Where's my boss? I could use some more, right? We could all use some more. But this is what we've said, that to be truly sustainable, we need to be sustainable economically, socially, and environmentally as well. And obviously, everyone thinks about sustainability as an environmental only, but to be replicatable, to have other companies come and join us, to have other real estate developers, to have other people say, what are you doing? We want to be a part of that. We need to be economically sustainable as well, too. And that's been in our DNA, in our vision since day one. So we have now gone from the idea to reality to, we say one of the world's largest clusters of LEED Platinum buildings. I actually think we are the world's largest cluster of LEED Platinum buildings. They don't actually publish the data, but we now have over 200,000 square meters of LEED Platinum buildings, with another 85,000 under construction as we speak. So to say that the world's largest, and for those of you who don't know, LEED Platinum is the highest green building council. So it's the largest global building rating system, and it's the most recognized. It's the most globally the most rated buildings, and it's something that actually is quite exciting for us to have the world's largest cluster. But having a LEED Platinum building does not mean net zero. And so we've got another step to get there. LEED Platinum is not far enough. We need to get to net zero. And this shows our journey. So in 2012, the incubator building where I work every day is cuts energy demand about 45%. Siemens in 21 and 13. And these, by the way, these are not based on design figures. These are based on actual usage over the past 10 years. So this is based on real electricity numbers and cooling numbers. And one of the differences between design numbers and actual numbers is the same way when you buy a car, right? You go out and buy a car and you ask the dealer what kind of mileage does it get, and he says, oh, it takes 6 liters to run 100 kilometers, right? But you drive it every day, and you drive fast, and you accelerate, and the actual consumption is almost always higher. The same way it works in buildings. When people get in there, they plug in more things. They forget to turn the lights off. They forget to turn the cooling down, and that even happens at Masdar City buildings. And so we got to 40% with Irina. We have residences, which are 35%, and then we've continually increased continue to reduce the consumption, getting to net zero buildings as well too. We finished our first 5,000 square meter net zero building. We're under construction with a 10,000 square meter building. We've just launched the first net zero mosque. We have the first net zero school. When people want to come and do net zero, they want to do it with Masdar City. We now have over 1,000 businesses. And so when I first started also, and I think our free zone team is behind me, and they would say, I don't want to be at Masdar City. It's going to be expensive to be at Masdar City. It's going to cost me more. Now the culture has shifted. The mindset has shifted to where people need to be a part of this. They need to be part of something sustainable, because every one of your companies writes an annual report, right? Yeah, write an annual report. And in the first page, the CEO or the chairman has a letter. and he writes a letter to the shareholders and he writes a letter to the stakeholders. And in the first or second paragraph, what does he talk about? This is our company. This is how sustainable we are. It doesn't matter if they do toxic waste. It still has to talk about how sustainable they are. And a lot of companies don't know how to get there. And they come and say, I want to be a part of Masdar City. The other thing is they also have to, every one of us has to go home and talk to our kids, right? So if we're not getting there, if we're not recycling, if we're not reducing our consumption, our kids are going to ask why, right? I mean, I know what happens for me. My kid goes to school, learns things. Daddy, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you more sustainable? And this is why companies want to come and they want to be part of this, and they see it as a business opportunity. So we're now home to about 15,000 people, between people coming in for work every day and people living there. Still the original, the master plan. You look, it's a square. One of the things that's great about this is it's based on traditional techniques. So everything we do is based on the idea, how would you master plan a city if you didn't have air conditioning? So if you go to southern Italy, where it's hot, and it's been hot for a long time, the walls are thick, the streets are narrow, there's a gelato shop on every corner. There's a city in Yemen called Shabam that as soon as it's safe enough, I want to go visit. It's called Manhattan of the Desert. And it's a square that was built several hundred years ago. And it looks like Masdar City because it's adapted to the environment that we're in. This is specifically designed for a hot desert environment. We shifted the whole city to catch prevailing winds to make it about 10 degrees cooler in the summer. So it feels like it's 10 degrees cooler. Masdar City is the last place you can have lunch outside in June and the first place you can have lunch outside in September. And I'm the last one doing it and the first one doing it every year. And the team knows this. They laugh at me for, it's still too hot. I'm like, no, we live here. We can do this. So our environmental goals, energy, we're going to reduce consumption at least 40% in each building, can reduce consumption of water at least 40%. And then we recycle all of our water gets recycled. So all of our black water, all of our gray water gets recycled and then used for irrigation. And then waste management. We recycle about 60% of our operational waste, or we divert from landfill. It's not all of it's recycled. Some of it's used in composting. Some of it's used on site, and about 70% of construction waste. We look at reducing embodied carbon by 30% by using low carbon concrete, recycled steel, recycled glass, recycled aluminum, and then having at least a minimum of 3 Pearl buildings and LEED Gold buildings. Now, all the buildings, even by our third-party developers, all the buildings that Masdar City does, we do LEED Platinum. And this is a screen full of other developments. None of these are Masdar City. And why would I show you what everybody else is doing? It's because in 2006 when we started, nobody in the region was talking about sustainability. You could do any flagship project, big projects we've been to, projects we know about it, like Palm Jumeirah or Burj Khalifa, fantastic projects. No sustainability agenda. Now every single major project, every single flagship project in the region needs to talk about their sustainability projects, whether it's what's going on in Saudi at Red Sea or NEOM or Expo in Dubai, 2020 World Cup in Qatar. Every single one of them had to say, we are sustainable. And that is a great step forward for this region. It's a great step forward for what Masdar City's original goals are, and that's to be a catalyst for other sustainable development. What we'd like to say is every country needs to be a sustainability country. Every development needs to be a sustainable development. Every company needs to be a sustainable company. And this is evidence of what's going on all around us. So if you look at the 4 main sources of carbon, and that is the built environment, transportation, heavy industry, or sometimes what's called hard to abate, and agriculture, Masdar City is taking on carbon emissions across all those. Not all directly through Masdar City. This is why we have partner organizations. This is why we have the academia and the research institutions, and it's why we have more than 1,000 companies that are with us so far. So we offer multiple sectors, and these are our partners across the different sectors we're working in, and the other one is one in the middle. And that's systems. So it's AI, smart systems. It's the integration and the ICT that needs to take that on. So we have organizations like the Department of Economic Development, like the Department of Energy, like Navia, like Savi, the Smart Autonomous Vehicle Industry Cluster, like our partner, like our sister company Masdar, that has the booth right next to us. More than 25 gigawatts of assets under management globally. We have three different ag-tech companies that are working with us: Dana, an ag-tech accelerator; Alaska, an indoor farming company; and then Delarta, which has been a catalyst company, which we put initial funding into, taking ideas out of the lab at Masdar Institute and into reality at Masdar City. And then built environment companies like G42, Volts Energy Storage, Honeywell, Siemens Energy, and TII and Mohammed Zayed University for Artificial Intelligence. So I did mention the things, but just quickly to go through the clusters and the innovation R&D that's going on. So energy with IRENA, the Emirates Nuclear Corporation, Masdar. Savvy and smart mobility. Mobility has been part of our DNA since the beginning. So most people come to Masdar City. One of the real highlights is riding the PRT. It's been operating for more than 15 years with 2.5 million passengers. Boris Johnson was here on the first day, and one of the things he talked about was his ride on the PRT. And that was 10 years ago. It's something he still remembers. Green hydrogen. We had the first green hydrogen station. Green hydrogen offers tremendous potential both for long distance transportation, shipping, trucks, aviation, as well as industry. And Abu Dhabi is an outstanding location to do this due to the cost of solar, because to create green hydrogen, you need renewable energy. To create cost-effective renewable energy, Abu Dhabi is an excellent place. We have the lowest tariff of any green project, of any solar project anywhere in the world in Abu Dhabi, at 1.35 cents. This is a cutout from The Economist, and I like, sir, because you shouldn't trust me about anything I say. I work for Masdar City. I'm biased. I love the project I'm on, but when The Economist writes an article about artificial intelligence in Abu Dhabi, and it says, hey, you guys know what's going on in China, you guys know what's going on in the U.S., but don't forget about Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi's got. And it mentions two main institutions. One's the Mohammed bin Zayed University for Artificial Intelligence. The next one is Technology Innovation Institute. And I met the journalist who did this. I met the journalist who did this at COP28. I said, what an amazing article. I just wish you would have written one more sentence. And she said, what's the sentence? I said, I wish you would have written that these are walking distance from each other at Masdar City. They're a few hundred meters apart. So when you say, where do I want to do AI? Where does the future of AI look like in the UAE? It's happening at Masdar City. Life sciences is a big focus area globally, because the breakthroughs here in terms of human health, I think we're really on the precipice, and a lot of people think we're on the precipice, but because of the regulatory environment, the visa regulations, but also the government entities that we have here, like M42 and the first biobank, as well as the private sector in silico medicine, which is going to do using AI to create the first pharmaceutical project in the UAE. We're going to have the Emirates Drug Corporation at Masdar City, which is the equivalent of the FDA for pharmaceutical approvals. Very excited about the department. Abu Dhabi Center for Public Health is at Masdar City. So a combination of the private sector and the regulatory environment is a great place to start your life science businesses. That is my 20 minutes overview of of how we've changed and what sustainability does to really truly drive business success at Masdar City. Our Free Zone team is here if anyone would like to catch up with them today too as well. And thank you. Yes, you can clap now. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm happy to take any questions anybody has as well too.
just have a question. What is Masdar City's view on battery energy storage system?
We think that, well, this is more a personal one than I don't know that Masdar City has a view on battery storage systems. I mean, I think when I look at the storage requirements, I think you're going to diversify a couple of ways. You're going to have something besides lithium ion for utility scale storage. And you're going to take the lithium ion in places where you need very compact storage, like vehicles, so or your phone. But we need to have a better battery. We need to have a more cost-effective place where you're not so space constrained. So we don't do the testing ourselves, but we have a spot on site where we do battery testing. It's done through Masdar because they fit into their clean energy projects. So to me, and I think most would agree, that storage, as we go more renewable and we have to deal with intermittency, the storage is becoming more and more important. But also that in the past year, the price of batteries has dropped about 50%. It's been a tremendous breakthrough, particularly for those of us who want more clean transportation.
Thank you for your wonderful presentation. So what are your goals or targets for having like a green mobility? How would you integrate the fossil-based, like for example, right now in UAE, many of them, they own fossil-based cars, like they run on petrol. But at the same time, like having this Masdar City with futuristic, having a green mobility, how you're trying to integrate these two? Thank you.
Look, that's a great question. And I would say one of the things we talked about was we need to be socially sustainable as well, too. So I would say we take clean mobility in two ways. For things that are run by us, so we're 100% clean, 100% electric for all transportation systems that we operate. So our transportation philosophy actually starts before the vehicle. Our transportation philosophy starts with walking and biking. So we believe that every place you can walk or ride your bike to is more sustainable than every place you drive an electric vehicle. And then for people who live and work there, we are not at the stage where we can require you to have an electric vehicle to either park in a Mazda or come in. But we are at the stage where we want to have the best charging infrastructure to make it as easy as possible for you if you're living or working at Masdar City. And so that you will eventually make that decision to move electric easier for you. But it's not like if you rent an apartment at Masdar City, we require you to have an electric vehicle with it yet. Culturally, we're not there yet. It's just not. So we have to take the steps that takes. We think that more people at Masdar City will have electric vehicles and adopt them sooner than other places. But also, if you own a 10-year-old car, you use it for a while. We're not going to make you change that, but we want to make it easy for you when the time comes for that decision.
Good afternoon. Yes, I would like to know what is Masdar City when it comes to your ADDC bill.
That's a specific question about the ADDC bill. So yes, we believe that you will use, well, you have two bills, to be fair. You have the ADDC bill, and then you have the Tabreed cooling bill. So your ADDC bill, between those, your energy consumption bill should be about 40% less at Masdar City than any comparable apartment in Abu Dhabi, and that is true for your office or for your apartment. And that's, but you will see a bigger consumption on your Tabreed bill because we have bigger savings across cooling. Because of the way we work with buildings, the way we do building facades. For instance, if you have a computer or a TV or a refrigerator, you plug that into the wall, that uses the same amount of energy at Masdar City that it will in any other development. But if you have a very efficient building, you're going to use significantly less cooling. And so you'll see bigger savings in the cooling bill than you will on the ADC bill, but you'll see savings on both. One more.
Thank you. For the hydrogen fuel, is there any retrofitting for the cars that can run on hydrogen?
I do not believe so. I think hydrogen engines are complicated enough themselves that you can't retrofit a car to run on hydrogen. You can retrofit a car to run on natural gas, and that's done. It's often done in more Eastern European countries than it is here. That's I know a lot of the taxis here running on natural gas, which is cleaner than petrol. I don't know of anybody who's thinking about retrofitting cars to run on hydrogen. That's a pretty specific engine type, and the development that has gone into hydrogen engines is very significant. I don't know that retrofitting can work with hydrogen. I'd love to hear someone else though tell me, oh no, you can do that, but I think that's very difficult.
Yeah. For your power saving, you are using same استدامة standard or you have separate standard?
That'll make it easier. Two mics. The same as which standard?
استدامة standard.
Oh no. Well, we follow both Estidama standards and we follow LEED standards because of course, we follow Estidama to be because we're Abu Dhabi, so we have to follow Estidama standards. We also want to make sure that we're hitting 4 Pearl standards on all of our buildings, but we also want to be a global benchmark, so we follow LEED as well on buildings that we do. For our third-party developments, we only require them to follow Estidama. And we require them to be at least 3 Pearl, but we want to do both for the buildings that we're doing ourselves. We're also doing one more standard called WELL, which is not particularly a sustainable standard, but it is about quality of life. So it's about insulation, it's about air quality, it's about air filtration, and it's also about amenities that are offered to office buildings like gyms and meditation centers. So we try and all of our new buildings, we're doing all 3 of those standards.
For Istidama, you are following all building required to be having 3 pearls.
Yes, every building at Masdar City has to be 3 Pearl, whether it's done by us or one of our partners. And for our buildings ourselves, we're achieving 4 Pearl for all of them now.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your perfect presentation. So I'm wondering when your ratios raising up for the EVs, I think Masdar City is a really perfect scenario to do the vertical to the grid, to the V2G. So do you have any plans about the V2G?
I think V2G is a very promising technology, and I think as we get more renewable energy, we're going to need more V2G. And for everybody, this is V2G means vehicle to grid. It means you're using your vehicle as a battery backup. And often this is a little easier done at the villa level than it is at apartment buildings, where you would either charge your vehicle directly when your solar panels are operating, or you'd charge your vehicle at night when electricity is cheap, and then during the 5 to 9 peak. When the sun has gone down, but you're at home and you're cooking and your TV is on and your lights are on, this is that. So then you pull from your vehicle to charge to power your house at that time. We'd love to experiment more with this. This is also a question for the utilities. We need the utilities on board right now in Abu Dhabi. And look, this is a great thing about Abu Dhabi. You have 24/7 electricity. Comes from the grid. It's quite inexpensive, but there's no time of day pricing. There's none of the things that make the economic incentives around that in place yet. It's a very stable grid. It's a very secure grid, but it does not have that incentive structure that people would start using V2G yet. But we'd love to do it.
Okay, how do you account for scope 3 emissions? Like, for example, all the indirect emissions as part of the value chain. Since I know when you plan for Masdar City or any infra that is being developed, you can account for scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. What about the scope 3?
You've hit it. Scope 3 is harder. So if you look at our carbon, and we've just published our ESG report, and it outlines ours. Our scope 1 emissions are actually very limited. Well, our scope 1 emissions are very small, as with a lot of companies. I mean, unless you're truly a manufacturing company, then your scope 1 is high. Our scope 2 is very large. Our scope 2 are the largest ones, and I think we've done a little more. We've done a lot more. Like a lot of companies, we've got a lot more focus on scope 2. We've got a plan on how we get that to net zero. Scope 3 and which for everyone in the crowd, and make sure I'm getting this right, because sometimes I get confused on scope 1 and scope 2 and 3. Scope 3 is the carbon emissions of your supply chain. Things that are not using directly. So it's almost indirect emissions. We try and work with our supply chain to have low carbon materials and a low carbon supply chain as much as possible. But like everyone else, that's a challenge for us as well. I suggest you talk to Chris Wan while you're here. If you know Chris. Chris is our absolute expert on that. He's our director of sustainability and has the one, and he does a net zero presentation with more detail than mine too. He's really going to be the best one to answer that question, and you know him already. So, and everyone who hasn't met Chris Wan, Chris is amazing. Chris is amazing. You should meet him.
Thanks for the insights about Masdar City, definitely. I do have a question related to this one, actually. So when it comes to reporting your carbon footprint, are you basically having also a connection directly to the QMRV of the national UAE ministry, or are you just having your own sustainability report and you say basically this is how we're doing it? How do you manage the reporting piece?
That is an excellent question, and I'm going to leave that one for Chris Wan. I know reporting. I know we just released our ESG report where we outlined our full carbon reporting. I do not know about the specific acronym that you used, but Chris would. He would absolutely know that. Where do we find Chris Wan? Thousands are asking. Where do we find Chris Wan? Chris has run away. Chris has run away from the difficult questions. Chris is speaking somewhere now. He'll be back this afternoon. But he will be here. I'm also happy to pass on Priya, who's here, can also give you his number and make sure you can find Chris. And he'll be seriously. That's a question he'd answer like that, but it would have to come to him. So thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your attention today, and enjoy the rest of the summit. And if you have not seen us in person, come out to Masdar City.